From the WATE.com Digital Center, answering your legal questions, this is Ask Isaacs. Now, here's Lori Tucker and attorney Greg Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lori Tucker, along with our legal analyst here at WATE, Greg Isaacs. Thanks, as always, for coming in.
Lori, it's a pleasure to be here.
Every week at around the 2:30 hour. A Monroe County mother, this is what we're talking about today, lost her daughter in a shooting 2 years ago. And at the time, it looked like she was trying to defend her daughter when 4 people allegedly came up to the house and shots were fired. Now the mom, only recently, is charged with first-degree murder. Let's talk about this turn of events in this case.
Very unfortunate death. 2-year-old Elena June Butts was killed in what authorities initially believed was a home invasion, where 4 people came to a residence armed, wanted to get a white substance or a white product. A fight ensued. The mother defended her daughter. Shots rang out. 2 people were dead, 4 people shot, and 5 people charged.
One of the dead was, unfortunately, little Elena, and the man accused of shooting her. So he lost his life as well. He was shot.
He did, and their charges ranged from a litany of criminal charges, beginning with first-degree homicide down the list to robbery, etc.
Now, here's one thing that we haven't talked about yet, not to interrupt you, but on that night or day when this happened 2 years ago, she came out with a tent pole, a long pole, and started attacking the 4 with that. Then the shots rang out. What does that have to do with the charges she's facing now?
Well, you had a dramatic change in charging decisions, because the original individuals were charged with first-degree murder, felony murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, attempted burglary, reckless endangerment, possession of a firearm during a dangerous felony.
Yeah.
So the narrative provided by the mother was, Sophia Sloan, that she had defended her curtilage, her house, with this metal pole against these men. That was the catalyst of one of the shots being fired, and then she retreated to her bedroom.
With the little girl.
With the little girl. But what's interesting, often law enforcement is hampered somewhat by the narrative they are provided. When you don't have smartphones, when you don't have Ring cameras, then it's just the good old-fashioned, here's what I say happened. And, cases have shown, Lori, that some of the most unreliable testimony we deal with is eyewitness testimony, because the brain is not a video recorder. It typically preserves things in segments and flashes. Your neurosynapses are firing when you're in a fight or a flight situation. And also bias is a big thing, because people have a tendency to mitigate or maximize facts to cover their own tracks or tails, so to speak. But here's what's interesting about this case. 2 years later, a dramatic change in a charging decision. The victim now is a defendant charged with felony murder and charged with aggravated child abuse and neglect. So let's talk about typically how that happens. And we're not sure, because there's not a lot of coverage on this.
What precipitated the 4 coming to the house? You alluded to the fact that drugs may be involved. They've got to prove that in court.
Right.
And then she comes out, tries to brandish a weapon, which is that pole, I guess, grab whatever she could find. So she's being accused of not protecting her daughter, basically.
Basically, how do you get to, well, the first part of this is, what typically makes a significant change in a prosecutor's charging decision?
Where did this start?
And there's basically 3 things that could happen. One, the words of a defendant, because whatever God put in us, people want to talk about what they did. So, we don't know if that was the case. Possibly someone else that has been charged has cooperated. That's another possibility. And the third thing is DNA or forensic evidence could have come to light that could have shed some light on the narrative and whether it was credible or not credible.
Trying to piece together that
But,
puzzle.
but it must have been significant
Yeah.
to dramatically change a significant charging decision to make a victim, a mother that fought armed men to protect her 2-year-old, to a defendant charged with felony murder with aggravated child abuse and neglect.
Now 2 years later.
2 years later. And
So they've been working on this.
They've been working. Interesting, Lee, under Tennessee law, there is no statute of limitations on homicide. So once new evidence is developed, someone can be charged. So, a very interesting development that now the mother who is the victim is now charged with a very serious crime.
So obviously, just to kind of recap what we're talking about in this case that did take this crazy turn, the grand jury found there was enough evidence to charge her with first-degree murder. What's the difference, and are you surprised, given what you know about the case? And what's the difference between first-degree murder and second-degree murder? Would this have been one of those cases, perhaps?
Well, this really wouldn't be applicable in this case because it's felony murder.
Okay.
And felony murder really doesn't require an independent mens rea or intent. Basically, if there is a death that's the proximate result of one of the triggering felonies, robbery, which we have here, theft, burglary, rape, all of those things trigger felony murder. And so if you are charged, and aggravated child abuse is obviously one of those triggering felonies, but all the state has to do is prove the triggering felony and then prove that it was the proximate cause of the homicide, and then you're convicted.
So this could just allude to the fact that this little girl had allegedly been neglected
And
for
again,
a while. Are they going to look at her past as
we
well?
want to be
leading up?
careful and not jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
But, is there evidence that there was something untoward going on? Was there a drug transaction involved? Were there other reasons? But basically, when you have aggravated child abuse and neglect, you are knowingly and intentionally placing your child in an environment that could lead to serious bodily injury, Lori, or death, as we saw here, unfortunately, with 2-year-old Elena. But really interesting, when you have a charging decision that makes the victim the defendant, a few years later, it really raises your head. So it'll play out in the Monroe County courtroom, whether someone talked, whether the forensics came back differently.
Or all of the above?
All of the above.
We'll be watching. Let's talk more at 5:30, shall we?
Let's do it.
Thanks for being with us.